Greetings, Alafia, Hotep, and Namaste. I am Yelosha Oshun Itanna Sonami, also known as Naila. I'm coming back to you today to continue this conversation about your words, building your world, and building your world through your words. So in this talk this day, as we go through the day, I want you to just think about what it means to speak power and light and life into yourself when you look in the mirror, into others when you see them, regardless of their actions or their demeanor, and understanding, and more importantly, understanding the difference between what you see and what you view. And so I want to kind of share with you my interpretation of the difference between seeing a thing and viewing a thing. Because some people say it's not about what you or what someone else calls you, but it's according to what you respond to. And then there's another thought, there's several thoughts, but there's another thought that was brought to me about um, most times people call people what based on their reaction, or based on their demeanor, or based on um, their character. And so again, the topic is about building your world through your words. And so let's go back to birth. Let's go back to the very beginning. Let's go back to the name that you were given at birth. Let's go back to that, and what was that name? And if you don't think that the name that you were given was a name that builds you up, or a name that um, strengthens you, or gives you an esteem, or helps you to feel good about yourself, well, guess what? You can always change your name, right? So we're talking about a this conversation that I had. It was a counseling session that I had with one of my sisters, who was doing a counseling session with me about a situation that she had with another sister. And as she was describing it and talking about it, she was talking about the culture by which they both come from, two different cultures by which they use a term of endearment towards one another when speaking. And so as she was discussing or having this conversation, those terms of endearment were words like, bitch and whore. So I said, okay, that's interesting. And it's nothing new. I've heard those things before. I've used the words before. Um, I've never used them in a way where I would call someone that name, um, to call a person that name in describing the name. I've used the name, and I've used it in a derogatory word when I was in a different space in my life and in my thinking. So um, I'm not removed. I'm not far removed from that understanding. I'm talking about growing and expanding your your thoughts about yourself, and the thoughts about the world around you. And how do you get from um, looking at yourself and understanding that everything and all things around you and before us are reflections of ourselves, reflections of our existence. And so that's why it is so vitally important to build your world by your words. So even if, say you come across someone that may be acting out, how do you view that person opposed to seeing them? My understanding and understanding of the word seeing and viewing is one can see. We all have the ability to see because we have visual, we have eyes, we have the ability to um, look at something. And so some things that we look at may be illusional, may not be real, may not be true. But if you view a thing, then that thing becomes clear, it becomes concise, it becomes emphatically detailed to where you're not looking with the naked eye, but you're looking with the eye of the spirit. So that means that, that thing that the scripture that says, call those things that be not as though they were, right? And yeah, I know about there's some, really insane and just not well put together individuals in the world. Yet everything has purpose. And at the end of the day, everyone is responsible for themselves. Even when we're in the midst of uh, chaos, in the midst of um, things that in people and senses and sensibilities and mindsets and thought processes and behaviors and attitudes that just don't add up, that just don't make sense. Look, I'm a mother. I have 3 children out of this womb and 5 gifted to me. So I understand just in that alone, not even talking about the world, but talking about how one envelops and develops. Yet it is up to us to speak life and light until into every soul. And especially us, we have to, as people of color, as African people, we have to build our world. We are responsible for restoring and rebuilding our world with our words. That is the ashe. That is the ashe that we must use. If you're practicing Iwapele, that's a good character. If you're in a space where you're helping yourself to develop, redevelop yourself, then you should be speaking light and life into yourself and then all of the reflections of yourself around you. It doesn't matter what others do, like the one brother said, but it matters how you respond. Well, it's the same thing as if someone is acting out. It behooves us who walk in the mind of being descendants of kings and queens to speak life into that which is lifeless. And at the end of the day, it is up to them to take it or leave it. But each and every one of us have a responsibility to grow and develop and continue the cycle of elevation, transformation, manifestation of our world. Each and every one of us, we have that responsibility. So yes, I believe that there is power in our words. There is power, first of all, in our thoughts about ourselves and everyone around us. And yes, your name is important because your name is the one thing that is called mostly other than any other word or any other name, any other thing that you will hear in your ear gate is your name. Your name. Your name is a thing that will repeat itself cycle after cycle after cycle more than any other words that will be spoken to you when someone is speaking directly to you. And so, what is the name that you want someone to call you when they're calling you? What is it that you want to respond to? When someone says my name, my spine erects, my head lifts up, smiles on my face, you know? Because to know who you are is to know whom's you are. And so, my queen, my king, my sister, my brother, I just want to share that information with you just so that you can rethink some thoughts to help transform your thinking so that you can transform your world around you and watch the change, watch the shift, watch the growth and the redevelopment. Think about this. Think about a little child from birth or to 3 years of age. What would you call that child in the first 3 years of their life? What name will you call that child? If you said that it was okay, because it's a term of endearment, to call someone a bitch or a whore or otherwise, just know that as a child, if someone is accepting of that, I believe, this is just my opinion, that there was some type of trauma that is still underdeveloped, what is called arrested development in the psyche, that is okay and is comfortable with this type of behavior or this term of endearment. Because to some it's like, what's the big deal? Why? What, you know, who cares about your name? What matters? What matters is your spirit. Well, guess what? When the Creator created us, He created us with a breath. When Mother brought the illumination of earth to birth, it was with breath. There was a name that was spoken through the breath of each and every one of us. In every spiritual book or read, it started with a name. It started with a gesture. It started with a breath. It started with energy being exchanged from one space to the other. So let us just rethink the thoughts. This is only to spark your spirit to regenerate new thoughts or to go back to what we forgot, to remember, to never forget where we've come from and what we must get back to. This is Ialosha Oshun Itanna Sonami. I bring you peace, love, and blessings and all the sweetness of life. The Mother Oshun. And I send you words of Hekau words that breathe life and medicine to every soul. Give thanks and praise. Mojupwa, Mojuba. To all of you and to those that continue to stay with us and watch, I give thanks and praise. Modupwe. Odabo.